You know that feeling, that specific kind of exhaustion you get when you're chasing something that just keeps moving?
Oh, yeah.
It's not just physical tired, it's like existential tired. You're on the treadmill, you're sweating, and you think you must have run a marathon by now.
But you look down and you haven't actually moved an inch.
Exactly. And that is the universal struggle, isn't it? We're all chasing the promotion, the bank balance, this vague idea of happiness.
And the logic we're always fed is just run harder, grind longer. If you're not getting there, you're just not sweating enough.
But today we're doing a deep dive into a source that says, stop running. You're doing the physics of success all backward.
It's a pretty radical pivot. We're looking at a transcript from the Grind Buddy archives today. The title is, If You Want to Be Wealthy and Happy.
A bit generic, maybe?
A little, but don't let that fool you. This is actually a speech from 1981. And honestly, for something over 40 years old, the core idea feels sharper today than it probably did back then.
It really does. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack the speaker's central claim, which I have to say, it sounds a little bit like a fortune cookie at first.
It does sound simple.
But once you dig in, it's actually pretty technical. The claim is that we are approaching our work, our lives, entirely the wrong way.
The foundational thesis is, well, it's deceptively simple.
Yeah.
The speaker says, work harder on yourself than you do on your job.
Which is the exact opposite of everything I've ever been told. I mean, you're taught to work hard on the Q3 report, the client presentation, the spreadsheet, the job is the sun.
Right.
And you just orbit it.
Right. And the source argues that working on the job, that gets you a living, which is fine. You know, we all need to pay the rent.
Sure.
But working on yourself, that's what creates a fortune. The argument is that success isn't something you pursue. It's not like you're hunting an animal in the woods.
Okay.
Success is something you attract by the person you become.
I want to stick on that for a second. Pursuit versus attraction. Pursuit implies the target is running away from you.
Exactly. If you have to chase it, it's fleeing. The speaker uses this really effective analogy about money here. He says, imagine you take someone who isn't mentally a millionaire and you just hand them $1 million. What happens?
We see it every year with lottery winners. They lose it. Almost always.
They lose it because they became a millionaire financially before they became a millionaire personally. The source puts it pretty brutally. He says, if you took all the money in the world, divided it up equally among everybody, it would soon all be back in the same pockets.
Wow. That is a savage quote.
It's savage, but it tracks. Income rarely exceeds personal development. Sure, you might get a lucky jump market spike, a bonus.
An inheritance or something.
Yeah, but unless you grow out to where the money is, the money will shrink back to where you are. It's like a law of gravity.
So the takeaway is kind of terrifying, but also empowering. If I want more, I can't just go find more. I have to become more.
That's the core of it. You have to become the vessel that's capable of holding this success. Otherwise, it just leaks out.
Okay, so let's get into the mechanics of this. Because become more sounds great on a poster, but what does that look like on a Tuesday morning when I'm tired? The source breaks this down, and step one isn't work harder, it's find out how things work.
Right, this is where we enter what he calls the idea economy. The speaker argues that the root of poverty, or just being stuck, isn't a lack of money.
It's a lack of ideas.
It's a lack of ideas. There's a great anecdote about this. He's talking to his mentor, this guy named Shafe, and the speaker says, I don't have any money, which, you know, feels like a very real, very tangible problem.
Very final problem, yeah.
And the mentor's response is just this classic reframing. He says, that's not a problem. And the speaker is, of course, confused. But the mentor corrects him. The problem is a lack of an idea on how to create money.
There isn't anything an idea can't change. That's the quote.
And it shifts the agency right back to you. I mean, if the problem is the economy or your boss, you're helpless, right? You're just a victim.
Yeah.
But if the problem is you need a better idea,
You can go get an idea.
you can go get an idea. Ideas are everywhere.
But ideas are also slippery. I have great ideas in the shower, and by the time I'm dressed, they're gone. The source mentions a really practical tactic here. Once you find an idea, what do you do with it?
You have to capture it. The phrase he uses is, don't use your head for a filing cabinet.
Which I am so guilty of. I always think, oh, I'll remember that.
Never works.
Yeah.
Our brains are processors, not storage lockers. The source is big on keeping a journal. And this isn't Dear Diary. This is a technical manual for your life.
Yeah.
You write the idea down, you read it, you repeat it.
It's like taking this intangible thing, this electrical impulse in your brain, and making it physical. ink on paper.
And that's the first step of creation. It bridges the gap between thought and reality.
Okay, so I need ideas. We're ready to stop using our heads as filing cabinets. But where do the ideas come from? The source gives us 3 specific inputs: reading, listening, and observing.
Let's start with reading. This is where he draws a really hard line between standard education and self-education.
Right.
Standard education, he says, will get you standard results. It gets you a job, it pays the bills, it keeps you in the middle. But if you want extraordinary results, you need self-education.
And the efficiency argument here is what really got me. It's not just about being smart. It's about saving time.
It's pure leverage. Think about it. A successful person spends 20 years failing, losing money, having sleepless nights, and they finally figure it out. Then they write it all down in a book.
And you can just read it.
You can download 20 years of their life experience in 4 hours.
Yeah.
You're basically skipping all the suffering and just keeping the lesson.
It's a cheat code.
It's a total cheat code. And he asks this really challenging question. He says, did you know that hundreds of successful people have written their stories in books and people don't read them? He asks, how would you explain that?
When you put it that way, it's baffling. It's like a treasure map is sitting on the table and we're using it as a coaster while complaining that we're broke.
Exactly. We're too busy watching TV.
So what's the prescription? Because read more is kind of vague.
He's very specific. 30 minutes a day.
That's it. Just 30 minutes.
That's it.
Right.
But it has to be the right material.
Yeah.
Positive, challenging, instructional, not just junk food for the brain. It's like a diet. You wouldn't expect to be an athlete if all you ate was garbage.
Right. Point taken. Okay, so input 1 is reading. Input 2 is listening. And this is where the source drops the most provocative advice in the entire talk. I actually laughed when I read this.
I think I know what you're talking about. The dinner strategy.
The dinner strategy. Lay this out for us, because
Yes.
on the surface, this sounds like terrible financial advice.
So the premise is simple. Get around successful people and listen to them. Standard stuff. But then he says, poor people ought to take rich people out to dinner.
Which immediately triggers the reaction, wait, if he's rich, let him buy dinner, or I'm broke, I can't afford that.
Right. That's the scarcity mindset kicking in.
Yeah.
But the logic is, if you spend money you barely have, say, 60 or 80 bucks, which was a lot in 1981, to buy a successful person dinner, what are you actually buying?
You're not buying the steak, you're buying access.
You're buying 2 hours of their brain, undivided. If that person drops one idea in your lap that helps you double your income, that $80 steak was the best investment you ever made.
It's switching from a consumer mindset to an investor mindset.
Exactly. And he says, poor people don't usually take rich people out to dinner. And that's why they stay where they are. They're protecting the little they have instead of risking it to learn how to make more.
There's a flip side to listening too, right? You can also learn from unsuccessful people.
Yes, this is important. It's learning by inversion. You find out what unsuccessful people are reading and you don't read it. You listen to how they blame everyone else for their problems and you make a note, never sound like that.
Brutal. Okay, let's move to input 3, observing. This one seems a bit more passive.
Not if you do it right. The key phrase is, success leaves clues. Successful people aren't just lucky, they do specific things over and over.
Which leads to my favorite detail in the whole transcript, the funny walk.
The funny walk, I love this.
The speaker says, if a guy is making $10,000 a month, and remember, this is 1981 money, I'd watch how he walks. Even if it's a funny little walk, copy it.
I haven't got the money yet, but I got the walk.
It's hilarious, but there's a deeper point, isn't there? He's not saying the walk literally creates the money.
No, of course not. He's talking about total immersion. But he also draws this great distinction between sight and insight.
Sight is seeing with your eyes. Insight is seeing with your mind.
Exactly. Most people have sight. They see a rich guy get into a nice car and think, must be nice. That's sight. Insight is seeing why he has the car. It's noticing the discipline, the habits, the details others miss.
Wherever you are, be there. That's the advice. Stop daydreaming and start decoding what's happening around you.
So now we have the inputs. We're reading, we're taking people to dinner, we're observing the funny walks, we've gathered all these ideas.
But ideas alone don't pay the rent. I can have a notebook full of million-dollar ideas and still be broke.
True. And the source is very clear on this. He says, don't let your learning lead to knowledge. You'll become a fool.
That feels like a paradox. We go to school for knowledge.
But knowledge without execution is just trivia. It makes you sound smart at a party, but it doesn't change your life. He says, let your learning lead to action. You can become wealthy. Which brings us to step 2. Go to work.
And the focus here is on discipline, but not like this big heroic discipline. He emphasizes starting with little disciplines. Why start so small?
Because you can't trust yourself yet.
Yeah.
You can't handle the big challenges if you haven't practiced on the small ones. If you can't discipline yourself to read for 30 minutes, how are you going to have the discipline to handle a financial crisis?
It's training. You don't bench press 300 pounds on your first day at the gym.
Exactly. You're building the muscle. And this ties into his point on motivation, which I think is so important for anyone who feels stuck waiting for inspiration.
The self-motivation part.
Yes. He basically says, stop waiting for someone else to come along and motivate you. He asks, what if they don't show up?
That's a terrifying thought. If your whole plan relies on someone else.
You're in a very vulnerable position. He says self-motivation is the only kind there is. You have to manufacture your own drive by getting excited about those little disciplines.
Which brings us to the question he asks the audience, and it's a haunting one. What are you going to do starting tomorrow that'll make a difference?
It demands an answer. Not someday, but tomorrow. If the answer is nothing, you've chosen to stay put.
Before we wrap up, there's one last caution. Step 3 in his framework is, don't beat the system.
This is all about integrity, which is fascinating, right? It's the core pillar of wealth. Today we hear all about hustle culture and move fast and break things.
He talks about people who learn just enough to start slicing it, shading it, thinning it, cutting corners.
Looking for cheap answers. And the consequence he lays out is so stark. If you look for cheap answers, you wind up with a cheap life.
Oof, that lands hard.
It goes right back to the attraction theory. If you're a person who cuts corners, you're not the kind of person who attracts sustainable success. You might get a quick win, but you won't keep it.
So do it right, even if it takes longer.
Always play the long game.
Okay, let's zoom out. We've covered the need for ideas, the 3 inputs, the need for action, and the guardrail of integrity. But I want to land on the final thought he leaves us with, the 5-year analysis.
This is the reality check. He says, the next 5 years are going to be like the last 5 unless you change.
I think everyone listening just felt that in their stomach. I know I did. It's terrifying because time just flies.
It's a mathematical certainty. If the inputs stay the same, the outputs will stay the same. We all look at the last 5 years and wish things were different, but we expect those things to just arrive.
But the source reminds us the only variable we actually control is the input, our personal development.
And this brings us to the real definition of choice. We tend to think of choice as these huge, life-altering decisions. Do I quit my job? Do I move?
The big movie moments.
Exactly. But the source suggests choice is much, much smaller. Choice is, do you read for 30 minutes tomorrow or not? Do you make the call or not?
It makes destiny feel manageable. It's not written in the stars, it's written in your daily planner.
Exactly. And if you don't choose that small discipline, if you say, I'll do it later, you've actually made a massive choice. You have chosen to keep your life exactly the same.
That's a heavy realization. To not decide is to decide.
So he ends by challenging everyone to reach down and use their human gifts to change whatever they want to change. But it starts with that one question. What are you going to do starting tomorrow?
It's not about beating yourself up over the last 5 years. You can't change that, but the next 5 years start tomorrow morning.
And you just have to remember the magnet. You are building the person who attracts the life you want. Every book, every conversation, every small discipline is just increasing your magnetic pull.
So here's our challenge to you listening right now. The source was clear. Don't let this just be knowledge. Don't let this be another deep dive you just nodded along to.
Right. Don't be a fool with a head full of facts and a life that hasn't changed.
Find your 30 minutes. Or your dinner. Or your journal. Pick one thing from this deep dive that you are going to do differently tomorrow.
And if you see someone with a funny walk who's making a lot of money, pay attention.
Exactly. Get the walk, get the money. Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.
See you then.